Hello, welcome to Global Business. I am Imewari Ohiomokai. Today, we start the Global Entrepreneurship Week. The Global Entrepreneurship Week is a week where entrepreneurs come together, network, meet up, inspire each other, learn from each other, and yes, they make money from each other. Yes, that's what the Global Entrepreneurship Week is all about. And we are in an entrepreneurship shop here in Abuja, the box office hub, where we have entrepreneurs, many entrepreneurs coming together in one ecosystem, coming together to learn and inspire each other. We'll be talking with the CEO of the box office hub. He'll be telling us what the box office hub is doing this week for the Global Entrepreneurship Week. But before then, we talked to some CEOs in the box office hub, and they'll be telling us what the Global Entrepreneurship Week means to them. So take a listen as we talk to three CEOs before we come to Doyin Adewola, who is the CEO of the box office hub, and he'll be telling us what the box office hub were doing to celebrate the week.
In my own view, what it means is it's a week that is designated for knowledge and sharing. And the part of it that thrills me is because it's made entrepreneurship a whole lot more interesting. And easier. I say that easier very, very lightly because actually it involves a lot of thresholds, connecting and all that. It takes a lot to get it done. However, it makes it much more interesting because in the days of the analog, in the days where we had to do things manually, it was a lot more difficult. It's not easy to meet this person, to meet that person, to make this connection, to make that connection, to travel and all that. But now that, as they say, the world is now a global village and the internet is the house.
It's a time when entrepreneurs from all over the place, all over the world come together to find out what they have in common, find out their challenges and ways to move forward. This is my first time participating in it, and I hope to learn from this experience.
For me, Global Entrepreneurship Week is all about making connections. The most important part about businesses and the ecosystem in general is having those connections with different firms and different businesses so that they can collaborate and innovate and make the ecosystem thrive. At the end of the day, entrepreneurship is about creating jobs, and you only create jobs by making connections between businesses. Most jobs that are created through entrepreneurship over the past 5 years are the ways through which the economy has grown. And so Global Entrepreneurship Week is, to me, a very important and very salient way of bringing people together so that they can come up with new ideas and new solutions for the future of work.
So I told you earlier on that we're talking with Doyin Adewola, who is the CEO of I call it the Entrepreneurs Shop. It's a box office hub, and he's right here with me. Doyin, thank you very much for joining us on Global Business. Now, the Global Entrepreneurship Week is this week. I mean, we're having so many activities, entrepreneurs meeting up, inspiring each other, and also learning from each other.
Very well.
Tell us about what box office has in store for this Global Entrepreneurship Week.
Okay, thank you very much. First is that box office is a co-work space. It's an environment where entrepreneurs network, share ideas, also giving them their opportunity to test and master their businesses in a very conducive environment. And once every year, entrepreneurs all over the world celebrate the Global Entrepreneurship Week. And the theme for this year is ecosystems, and Box Office Hub has created different events and meetups for entrepreneurs to get to meet with themselves and also collaborate. And so from Monday, we'll be having sessions.
That's today.
Today we'll be having sessions in business planning. We'll be having sessions where, like a CEO's breakfast meeting, where top executives within the ecosystem come together to discuss. The theme for that is talent and management. We'll also be having, in partnership with Startup Grind, we'll be hosting Dr. Neto, who is a health tech startup to share his ideas to inspire people on the challenges he has faced in building a startup and all of that. And on Friday we'll be screening a movie, The Boy That Harnessed the Wind. And so pretty much what we want to do is to first appreciate and celebrate the entrepreneurs, because entrepreneurship is actually one of the ways that every nation can achieve socio-economic development. And we think that the entrepreneurs in Nigeria have also done so great. And so first we want to celebrate them. Second, we want to bring people together to know what other people are doing, get people inspired, and also educate themselves.
I was actually hoping that this Twitter CEO, who I saw you in a picture with, would be around during the Global Entrepreneurship Week. I wish he was around.
I wish he was, but I guess you know that he had a plan to visit Africa, and because Dr. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala is on the board of Twitter, she told him to visit Nigeria first in his African tour. So immediately he left Abuja, went to Ghana, and I understand he'll be going to South Africa and also Kenya, I guess. So, I mean...
Yes, but for the Global Entrepreneurship Week, you've been celebrating it for some time now.
Right.
How has what's the impact of the Global Entrepreneurship Week?
Great.
What's the impact so far in the few years that you've celebrated?
Okay, so first is that we've been able to demystify the concept of entrepreneurship with the people that have attended, such that people think entrepreneurship, if you need to raise $1 million or $10 million in capital to start, first we let people know that entrepreneurship is all about solving a problem. And before you can solve a problem, you must also be a master in providing the solution. So the most important thing in entrepreneurship is that you have the industry knowledge. You are able to solve a problem so well that people will pay you for. So people can actually bootstrap in starting up a business, not necessarily amassing so much money or saving so much money before they start. That is first. Second is that we try to organize an open week in the ecosystem of Box Office Hub, where members can get to provide their services at discounted rates or at free, at no cost to other participants coming in to celebrate with us. What that does is that people know about businesses that we have in Box Office Hub, and also other people who need services can in some way get a taste of the value they will be getting eventually. And so we believe there's been a lot of impact, but the most important thing is that entrepreneurship shouldn't be seen as something so difficult or impossible to do. For me, I think once you can solve a problem in whatever sector, if you know how to do anything well, if you have a strength, it's actually a foundation or a base point to provide.
It's like the raw material.
Definitely.
Thank you very much, Doi,
for
Samuel, talking with us on Global Business. So the program continues, and I told you before, we'll be talking with energy experts, come lawyer, and also we'll be talking PROMACON. Right at this spot, when Jokunwe came from many villages away, people still come here for safety. It is said that when shots of bullets are coming, if you come into the spot, you are safe. This documentary you're about to watch is about how history has made a place and made a people. So last week we told you about the Deep Offshore Inland Basin Act that was signed by President Muhammadu Buhari in London, or some people call it the Petroleum Sharing Act. And Chris Osakwe, who is the executive director of Foundation for Good Governance and Social Change, had his views about that act. Well, today we have Israel Aye, an energy expert and a lawyer, tell us and explain or break down what exactly this PSA Act is all about, the amended act that was signed by President Muhammadu Buhari. He tells us what it is about, and he also had his views about what Chris Osakwe said. So Let's listen to Israel Aye. Thank you very much, Israel Aye, for talking with us on the program. Now, the president 2 weeks ago signed the Deep Offshore Petroleum Sharing Act law, and that's an amended law. Of course, beyond the politics of where, when he signed it, Nigerians have been eager to know what exactly does this law mean to us. So could you break it down? What is this law all about?
In a nutshell, the law or the act that the president signed into law, the bill that the president signed into law, is an amendment act. So what was it amending? It was effectively amending what is referred to as the deep offshore and inland basin production sharing contract. Sometime in the early 90s, the government wanted to incentivize production or petroleum operations in especially the deep water. And at the time, we wanted to also incentivize exploration in the inland basin, which is about where you have the Gongola Basin, where, excuse me, oil is reported to have been found. So that's been in the pipeline over time. And typically, when you want to incentivize new activities, you then offer fiscal incentives, either tax exemptions or reduction of tax rates, suspension of some other form of obligation. In the case of the deep water, what happened was the government reduced the tax rate from 85% to 50%, varied the royalty regime, which is typically at 20% for onshore, to somewhere between 8% to 0% for production beyond 1,000 meters depth of water. And of course, introduced investment tax credits and allowances, which created more favorable fiscal incentives for those who would want to take those opportunities. It was envisaged at that time that given certain conditions or at certain times, those terms will be revisited. Because remember that, royalty would typically apply, tax rate is at a certain rate and all of that. But it was thought that, okay, once you come in and if you're successful, those terms will be reviewed. They were meant to be reviewed when oil hits a particular threshold, $20 for a sustainable period, and or at 15 years. Unfortunately, that didn't happen. And so that's what effectively that law was.
Okay, so now, what is the international best practice concerning this regime? This law. I'm talking about the tax regime. What's the international best practice?
When you say what obtains elsewhere internationally, royalties are a feature of petroleum production, in many places. Like I said, it is upfront rent due and payable, upon production. So it's not entirely new. Particularly for countries we like to look upon as sort of contemporaries or peers, and by that I'm referring to the OPEC countries. Literally, as far as I'm aware, it's an established practice that royalty is due and payable, as some sort of income guarantee to the host nation. So yeah, it's not a strange phenomenon.
There have been many reactions to this law. One of it by President Muhammadu Buhari, who he believes that this brings more money to the Nigerian pocket. What's your own reaction as to what it means to Nigeria as a country, especially financially?
Well, we've said that in the near term or in the immediate term, it puts more cash in the coffers, which hopefully would be spent or invested on behalf of the people to improve our lives and our living. But the concern is not necessarily with respect to what you refer to as, the financial implication, but indeed the implication or the opportunity cost of that particular amendment to new investments in the petroleum sector, particularly in the deep water segment, and indeed the implication for the wider question of foreign direct investment flow into Nigeria. It raises, in some quarters, and perhaps justifiably so, concerns around fiscal certainty. Okay? Now, that's a bit of a contradiction in terms, because if you say fiscal certainty, what do we mean by that? Especially if we say that there were triggers within the old law for this to happen.
One of the reactions we also had is by Austin Osakwe, who is the executive director for Foundation for Good Governance and Corporate Change, or Social Change, I beg your pardon. He believes that this law does not benefit the communities themselves. He believes that these royalties should be coming straight to the communities.
But let me say the jurisprudence, that's the legal philosophy of the payment of royalties, that royalty is due and payable to the owner of the resource. Under Nigerian law, both by virtue of the Constitution and the Petroleum Act, ownership of petroleum resources is vested within the federal government of Nigeria. Therefore, on the basis of that alone, it is the federal government that should receive royalty and do so on behalf of everybody else. But, the real issue is not to interpret the law, but this really just then takes us back to the whole question of resource control, which is the legitimate entitlement of any group of people to demand what they're convinced is their right. Yeah, is to convince that they're right. But the fact that royalties is due and payable to the federal government or the central government is not peculiar to Nigeria. As a matter of fact, as far as I'm aware, the only country on earth that probably runs a slightly different approach, and it's not even communities or groups of people that possess the right to earn royalties, actually individuals, okay, that control those resources. But elsewhere, central governments that have the right, as it were, to manage natural resources on behalf of the general population.
Thank you very much, Israel Aye, for talking with us on Global Business. Okay, so project managers had their conference in Abuja. It's the annual project management conference. It's in the 10th year this year. And we went there to take some snippets. Of course, you'll be listening to how project management is so important to you as an entrepreneur, since we're celebrating the Global Entrepreneurship Week, and is also very important for this economy. We'll be looking at issues, even talking about project economy. How do you do that? It's a lot. Just sit back and relax and enjoy.
Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, it's a great honor and privilege to have you all here today. On the 8th of September 2009, the maiden edition of PROMACON, the National Project Management Conference, the premier and the largest gathering of project management professionals held here in Abuja, declared open by the late President, Umar Musa Yar'Adua. A seed was planted exactly a decade ago, and that seed has indeed germinated to define the practice of project management in Nigeria. Today, we celebrate that milestone and the beautiful practice of project management, which has become one of the fastest growing practice and profession in the world, and now an enviable career path for so many, both in Nigeria and outside Nigeria. But that didn't just happen overnight. Many people in this room actually contributed to the growth of the practice in Nigeria, and today is their day. Why project management? There's an intricate linkage between development and project management. It is an indispensable tool that developed nations and successful organizations have used to achieve developmental and business results. Studies have shown that organizations that have adopted project management in driving their initiatives have succeeded more. No wonder many organizations now set up project management unit, enterprise program management offices to support their strategy units. However, it's important to know that project management is not like some of the people think about construction, nor is it IT. It's not just a practice. It is both science and arts of execution, which helps to close the gap between strategy and results, between budget and delivery, and between aspiration and development.
The colonial independence era, before the British could run our economy, there had to be some projects. So they imported people, did all the things they could do to make the best out of us. And that introduced construction and engineering project management, which became the base of the body of knowledge of project management in Nigeria. So it is not out of place when people in construction industry literally claim that project management is their birthright. Though we have moved beyond that, but it's a resemblance of what project management is all about. Gradually, we got to the oil and gas era, whereby if you say project management, any person working in the oil industry will say, yes, it's ours. As time goes on, we had a major breakthrough in project management, even though it may not be organized by the locals. The first TAC 77 that brought virtually the globe into Nigeria. It had some physical infrastructure and so many things, event management and all that put together. That was a first TAC 77. As time goes on, we had the ICT galore, where if you there mention project management, an IT person will say, yes, it's our own. So, why did I go through this route? Is to show us how project management is multidisciplinary.
What is national development, really? What are we talking about? Is it something about the beautiful lady or the handsome man, who we all know when we see, but it is difficult to define? And therefore, I forced myself to articulate a few parameters that I will classify as national development. And high on my list was the quality of life of the citizenry. That in the final analysis, it is the quality of life of the citizens of a nation that will define national development. It manifests in many forms. But if people don't have food on their table, if they don't have water to drink, if they cannot go from one place to the other, then we can't say we have national development. So that was my first criterion. The second one for me was this quality of life must be sustainable. In other words, you don't want to build 100 kilometers of road, then it lasts 5 years, and or 6 years later, you are rebuilding it. You don't want to do a water treatment plant that breaks down 3 years after it was commissioned, and we're back to square one. That's in the short run. It must be sustainable. But in the long run, it must also be sustainable for future generations to be able to lead their own life, whatever happens to us. So you don't want to fell all the forests in the bush and leave nothing. You don't want to pollute all the waters in the land and leave nothing. So we must worry about quality of life, and it must be sustainable. The third leg for me was that we must make contribution to development. We must push the frontiers of knowledge. We cannot just be consumers of development all over the world without contributing our own in every way whatsoever. So I said I was going to rest my case here. We could go on. So the theme that this discussion is focused on national development, and the national development that I have defined says quality of life of the people in a sustainable manner, and contribution to knowledge and pushing the frontiers of knowledge.
I think in every area of our lives, both private, public, in our private sector endeavors, the importance, we might not even realize that what we are doing and doing very well involves a huge aspect of project management. I've always said that most of the challenges that we face in Nigeria, well, I always say most of the challenges has to do with lack of data as one of the most important. I think lack of proper project management is also a huge problem we have faced in this country for many, many years. And that's what has set us apart from countries that we all want to be like. I think if we take a lot of things we do more seriously, put in the principles of project management, and we continue our sustain it, I think our country would have been significantly different today.
Okay, so we've come to you from the Box Office Hub in Abuja, and we've been celebrating the Global Entrepreneurship Week. It's a week for all entrepreneurs, and I hope you have enjoyed every bit of the program, Global Business. It's been wonderful doing business with you. Let's do business again next week, Monday. I am in Mewari Uhiamokai. Have a business week and a good one.